Well, let's get started. I've learned from practice that you got to take a few seconds to start talking up here because it cuts it off in the video. Now, let me address something. If I look sleepy, it's because I am. I just woke up from a dream and I thought to myself that I should make a video about the dream, one for posterity and one another for edification if it speaks to anybody. But then I wanted to go back to bed, but I pushed myself to come down and make this video. Stinky breath and crusty eyes, be damned. So this video is called Dreams and Nonviolence. And I've been reading Dr. King because on Sunday I'm speaking for Martin Luther King Sunday, and I'm also doing something on Monday for MLK Day. And so I've been reading his stuff, and it's been a little bit harder to read his things this year than it has been in the past when I've done Dr. King stuff. Dr. King has always been a symbol of possibility for me. I love Dr. King, and the only holiday I actually give a crap about is MLK Day. All other holidays, I see all of the, you know, commercialism, capitalism, and all the things that led to his murder are all entangled with the other holidays. And so on this particular holiday, I use it as a time to reflect and ask myself, like, where am I as it pertains to the vision that he put forth and tried to articulate for us as people. And I wasn't in a great place this year. One is because my brother was murdered a couple of days before Christmas, which doesn't put you in a great place when you're thinking about violence versus nonviolence. Um, and then the state of the world. A friend on Facebook posted and said he wondered what Dr. King would say about today if he were alive. And I imagined that he probably would be like, damn, I died for this, you know? Same with Jesus. I joked and said that some of the Christians today would make Jesus want to stay in the tomb. And that was my sincere feelings until I had this dream last night slash this morning. I actually have a headache right now too, on top of everything. So, and just I'm not feeling great, but I feel like I should still make this video. So, at any rate, in the dream, I was at this Christian camp, and I've been in like pretty much every denomination you can be in Christianity. I've been in the strictest, can't go to the movies, can't go to football games, women can't wear pants, can't wear jewelry style apostolic Christian church, all the way to the most liberal, anybody is welcome, uh, LGBTQ ministers. Like, I've been in all of the denominations. And I've always had this center where I just want to know the heart of Christ. I've been to Christian communities in other countries. I went on a trip to China with Christians that were very conservative as well as Christians that were very liberal. And I was the only person that spoke Chinese there in my group, and nobody knew it. Different Christian contexts. And I've been able to see the best of Christianity and the worst of Christianity. And last night in my dream, I was exposed to all of it. I was at this Christian camp where every kind of Christian I had ever been around was there. And I saw different friends that I haven't seen in years and all sorts of things. And we basically were at this camp trying to see if we could work it out, if we could finally get our Christian crap together and stop being the shame of the world. Because, like, I ain't gonna lie, a lot of times I feel like Christians are the shame of the world because they went around colonizing everywhere, saying they were about Jesus while they're chopping people's heads off and stealing their land and stuff. It's very embarrassing. But at any rate, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this conference and see if we can actually pull this off and be one body in Christ, like they say in the scripture passage, right? In the Bible. So we get there, we start trying to talk about it. It doesn't take long before all hell breaks loose and we start fighting each other. Sorry, somebody's trying to call. And they start fighting each other during the camp, and we were just going crazy. And I was just like, man, and at first I was trying to be a peacemaker and try to see if we could figure out, because I had been in all these different denominations in some capacity. So I was trying to explain people to each other and all this other stuff like that. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, I can't explain this crap anymore. And I just picked up my weapons and started fighting too. And I was fighting, just going around fighting folks. And I didn't want to kill anybody, but some of the people I knew were killing people. I was just trying to stop people from killing me. And I would like hurt them enough that they would leave me alone. And then I would just run off. But I didn't kill anybody. And then eventually, to speed the dream up, a friend that I'm in a little bit of contention with now, and another friend that I'm not in contention with, both of whom are fundamentalists. Um, I saw them and I was like, a part of me wanted to take out this one friend. I'm not gonna lie, because I was just like, man, but I wanted to take him out because it wasn't like I wanted to hurt him, but I wanted him to stop being the way that he was. And I was like, the only way I could save this guy from being how he is to just take him out. It's crazy, right? And then the other friend, he started tripping, and then he said to me, he wasn't sure what he wanted to do anymore. He was on my side, but then he started saying he didn't know what he wanted to do because he could see some of the points of the other side. And it was mostly because he wanted to survive. He had lost his job and all this other stuff like that, and he had a family. And so he was like starting to kind of vacillate. And I was like, how are you going to vacillate, man? And then I know people don't say vacillate. He started being wishy-washy. So he started being wishy-washy. And then at first I was like, how are you going to be like this? And then he said, well, have you ever thought that I got a family to take care of and da 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 da? And he's like, maybe you're willing to lose everything and not be able to take care of your family, but I'm not. So I'd rather just take like a lower job or whatever with these people and like survive. And then maybe later I can. And I was just like, oh, and I was like so frustrated. And I was just like, how can I just like stop this whole system? And then something came over my mind. I don't know. I started thinking about Dr. King. And I was like, how in the heck did this dude even think that he could do this nonviolence thing with all this craziness going on? And how the heck could it work today? And then the crazy thing happened was we were about to go to this place. We knew that all of them are held up in this theater. And they were like, they're held up in this theater. If we get in here, they'll be trapped in there and we could just take them out. And some of us are going to have to sacrifice ourselves, but it's for the greater good and blah, 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 blah. And then we were just like, yeah. And I had this like big, weird stick that in my mind, I thought could catch weapons and flip them around and I could beat people. I don't know what, it was weird. So then I'm just like, okay, I got this stick, da, da, da. And as soon as I was about to walk in the theater to start fighting people, my brain was like, Pedro, it's not worth it. And it was like, stop fighting. And in my mind, I was like, but these people won't stop. And it's like, and like, I just want to fight them enough to make them stop. And then it's like, but they won't stop. And then all of a sudden, some of my brain said, you just stop fighting and the violence will stop. And at first I thought it was like metaphor. So I said, what do you mean? It was just like, don't participate in this violence. Don't feed into this violence, even though they've done all these things and you're right about it. Just don't participate anymore. And I was just like, but I'm going to die if I go into this war zone and then I don't fight back. And then it was like, then that's just be how it has to be. And I was like, damn. And then I just decided I'm not going to fight anymore. So I walked in there. And when I walked in there ready to not fight, somehow between the people that was on my side that rushed into the door and ahead of me and me walking in deciding I wasn't going to fight, they were all getting along. And they had decided they didn't want to fight anymore. Everybody decided they didn't want to fight anymore. And they just were working it out. And I was like, what happened? And we just decided to talk it out. We don't want to kill anybody else. We don't want to fight anymore. And I was like, what? And it was like something, I woke up from it. And then my mind was like, you know, I inside of myself have always wrestled and fought with all these different expressions of Christianity inside of myself and all these theologies and all these other things. I had an internal struggle with all of this, an internal struggle of how to articulate my faith, an internal struggle of how to make sense out of some of the experiences that I've had that I'm not going to lie. They've been kind of out of this world. And I have never looked for them or pursued them, as I mentioned in previous videos. They just showed up and I know what to do with it. Or I encountered people who taught me things about other ways of seeing the Christian faith and all this other stuff. And then so I always been wrestling the whole time. And then it was just like almost as if I stop wrestling inside, then I won't see a world where people wrestle on the outside or fight on the outside. And so I got up and I thought about it for a minute and then I decided to make this video. Now, I don't honestly believe that, and maybe it's true, but I don't think that if I stop fighting on the inside, then no hope. I'm gonna walk out the world today and there's gonna be peace and Orange Julius Caesar won't be there anymore or anything like that. But it's a place to start. And so I'm trying to figure out what that means for me because honestly, especially since my brother died, my brain I've been getting headaches and all stuff because like my brain wants to find somebody to blame. You know what I mean? Because and it obviously the easy answer would be the woman who stabbed him, but she is an expression of a system that has created people who don't know how to communicate. And so is my brother. And a lot of times the way I've dealt with things is I've chosen to battle inside of myself and make sense of things inside of myself so that I don't have to battle on the outside. And I thought that was the way for more people. If more people did that, then, maybe things would be easier. And I have done work trying to teach people how to communicate across differences. And I've watched people abuse those kinds of trainings. I watched people be willing to work together when their side didn't have power. And as soon as their side had power, they went straight to being like, screw you guys. I'm living that right now. So there's definitely people that are tripping. But I do think that my soul is telling me I have a different way of dealing with it now. And one of the things I said to my brother in one of our last conversations, I told him I was about to come out as weirder than people might already think I am sometimes. And then he was like, nigga, you ain't weird. You just you. Sorry for saying the N word, but that's exactly what he said to me. He's like, you're just you. And he's right. And another friend talked to me a couple of days ago, and he was like, he experiences me as a person who pretty much just kind of says how things are and accepts others and accepts myself and stuff like that. And then he was like, tell me if I'm wrong about that, but that's how I experience you. And then I was just like, yeah, for the most part, I am that way. But the only thing that I'm not that way with 100% is the spirituality piece. And that's because I was raised fundamentalist. I was raised conservative. I was raised to be a Trumper, man. I was raised to be a black Trumper. That's why I know a lot of Trumpy people. And I I guess broke out of it, but I didn't really break. And so by getting kicked out of it, I had no choice but to learn how to live in a world outside of it. And I got kicked out of it for asking questions. But then I always had this part of me that wanted to explain to people why I thought the thoughts I had thought or had the questions I had or open my heart to people who we were told were out. But I couldn't explain it and they didn't want to hear it. That's the honest truth. They didn't want to hear it. And I've had a really something journey along those lines. And one part of that journey was I did try to be an atheist at one point because I was so mad at Christians. I was so mad at them for like basically the ones that I was around for just not thinking. And I'm not trying to be funny, but then from my dream, I realized that their non-thinking is emerging from some kind of sincerity. Like some of them really want to follow God and they really want to go to heaven or whatever it is that they want to do, but they don't know how. And because of ego and because of the way our system works where people aren't supposed to say, I don't know, they just try to find the right answer. And then they look to the person who seems like they have the right answer and they just follow that mug. And then their sincerity is taken for granted. And I think that sometimes the people who lead them astray are also sincerely doing it because they don't know anything. They've seen the world and seen the physical manifestations and think that that's success. And so they're like, hey, it's working, and there's a lot of more psychology behind it. But from my dream, I came from this awareness that like, no matter whether people are closely aligned with, and it's not just Christianity, whatever the religion is, people who are closely aligned with the principles of their faith and do it because they understand it or they're willing to keep trying, there's a sincerity there. And the people who are doing it horribly, there's also a sincerity there because they're just following people and just they don't think for themselves. They honestly don't think for themselves. So it's like, who do you blame, right? And there's so much systemic things. I don't know if you all who are watching this, you should look up Drewski, Druski church skit, and he was doing a church skit about mega churches, and it's so on point. And it's making a lot of people trip out because they like are feeling like he is mocking God, but he's really mocking these pastors that are just showboating, and also the parishioners who are silly enough, sorry to say that, y'all, who just listen to these people and don't do their own work. And so he's joking all of them. And then these people are taking it as joking God. But the thing is, many of us don't know God, because if you knew God, and I'm not trying to be funny, you would know yourself. And if you knew yourself, you would love yourself because God loves you. And the degree that you love yourself is the degree that you know God. If you don't love yourself, then you don't know God, because God is love. And everything that proceeds from God is also love, which means that you are love. And when you have a relationship with God, is love reflecting love back to love. If there's anything in there that's less than love, that's the degree to which you don't know God. And that may be awkward to hear or painful to hear, but it's the truth. And that's some of the things that I've been trying to learn how to speak and communicate, because I want to speak that to people. But I also am mindful that sometimes um, in my expressions, I've hurt people's feelings in my expressions because I have just been too direct. And actually, I've learned recently um, that there's this I know with my brother's death, like I've had a lot of people say a lot of like stupid stuff to me that's made me angry, and I think is what called all this stuff up that I'm sharing with you this morning. Good morning, Jane. I was telling Lynn, who's the only person up here right now, I just woke up so I can barely see. But at any rate, um but like I'll give you an example. When I first found out my brother died, I was like just not catatonic, but I couldn't move for some hours. And then I got myself to move, and had to stop at the grocery store to grab something for my family for dinner. And I went through I normally don't go through the line. I normally go through self checkout, especially when I don't have much stuff. And but the self checkout line was ridiculous. So I went through this line with this lady who barely had anybody in her line, and thought to myself like, hey, I'll I'll just go through her line real quick. But then I noticed that she was talking to this customer, that she was one of those people that says a bunch of stuff. And I was like, oh no. And then somebody got behind me, so I was sandwiched in there. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to not say anything, and maybe it'll be obvious that I don't want to have a conversation. So I go in, and she goes, oh, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. I said, it's okay. She said, just okay. It's almost Christmas. This was like 2 days before Christmas. He's like, it's almost Christmas. Blah, 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 blah. What's going on? And I was like, my brother died. Oh, really? When did he die? I was like, just found out today. Now I'm feeling not great. And this lady does not have clues to leave me alone. And then the bagger goes, well, at least he's with Jesus. And I was like, what the heck? Like, these people don't know me. They don't know my situation. They don't know my brother was stabbed by a woman that I begged him to stay away from, and what I'm feeling. And I can't blame them because they don't know. And at the same time, they're what they said did not feel great. And I had to, in that moment, while I was feeling those feelings, I had to both acknowledge that they didn't know what they were doing, and they were doing in their level of sincerity, trying to be comforting, or something like that. And they weren't good at it. And I had to realize that that's what I see with a lot of people in the Christian church. They're just not good at it. Now, am I wrong for saying that? Am I trying to say I'm better than them? I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm trying to say is that I have done a lot of work. I have studied a lot. I have failed a lot. I've been in almost so many different denominations. I've gone to, like I said earlier, other countries, and literally was in the tension between house churches in China, like illegal house churches, and being with people who were actually at risk for being Christian, some of which have been kidnapped and disappeared. And then also uh, state sanctioned mega churches. And I could see the differences. I've been in mega churches. I've been in little churches where it was like 6 old white ladies. I've been in so many different type of churches, and I've listened to people all over the world tell me how they experience Christ. And I've wrestled with it while having my own point of view. And my point of view is shifted through conversation and relationship with all sorts of people. So to me, um, even though I feel like everybody's entitled to their experience, a lot of experiences grounded in nothing. It's like their experiences. I've listened to another person tell me what to think, and now I'm staying in that container because I'm scared of going to hell. That's stupid. Sorry, but it's uninformed. How about that? It's uninformed because if you don't do any work inside yourself, you don't know. And the scriptures itself say, "Study to show ourselves approved," and also says, "Physician, work out your own salvation." So, like, if you don't do anything to understand your faith, whether you're Christian or any other denomination or any other religion, you just aren't having. It's like watching somebody else eat and they're telling you what the food tastes like, and you just start talking about it like you know what the food tastes like, but you never tasting this and then eating doo doo, and they're like, delicious, tastes like chocolate and chicken, and you're like, then you start telling people this doo doo pie tastes like chocolate and chicken, but you never tasted that stuff. If you taste it, you will know it was gross. Or if it was something good, you taste, you know it's delicious, but you didn't taste it for yourself. It's like, shut the F up. I mean, that I don't mean it in a mean way, but it's like at some point, like, you don't know, just say I don't know and learn stuff. And there's still some sincerity there. I had another person say to me, I told them my brother died. They asked me some questions. Then they basically were like, is he in heaven or hell? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then, like, you know, why say that? But they did. And then after they said that, then I told them what happened a little bit. And they said, wow, why would you stay with somebody that's like, doesn't treat you right? And they said, he must have been a really sweet guy or stupid. Who says that? But in their mind, they were trying to comfort me while sounding terrible. So all that to say that it's like so many of us, um we struggle with are people who just don't know. They just don't know. And so I've come to the point where I'm just like, I have to live in that tension and choose the way I communicate, choose the way I express myself from the place of the highest love, and then move forward from there. It's not going to be easy. I tried it. I used to be that way when I was younger till I got super frustrated and got kicked out of the church. Then I rode all these tensions, and now I don't know, but my dream has kind of shown me that whatever it is, I got to do inner work. And so more inner work. And I do inner work every day. Like you wouldn't believe, like I'm getting paid for it. Like to the point where I'll be like having migraines and everything, trying to reconcile different things that I've read. I've read books on this side of an argument and that side of argument, and written journals trying to figure out like what I felt in between them. I've listened to people tell me, like, one of my transformational experiences is I heard a trans woman pray. I didn't even know she was a trans woman. I just thought she was a woman. And I came from tradition where women weren't even allowed to speak. So I was like, yo, this lady's amazing. Like the Holy Spirit is with this lady. And I felt like the room lit up with light when she was praying, because it's like she understood the embodied tension of trying to live your faith in this human body and all the distractions. And she prayed such a whole and full prayer that I was like, I don't care what they say. And I used to come from like mostly black churches run by men who just blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I don't care what they say. This woman's got the spirit, man. If she is not able to preach, then there's a travesty of the world. And I never felt the prayer to me want to cry. I feel like I was like, she was white and I'm black. And I felt like in my whole body, like she understood what it was like to be in this body that people project all this stuff onto. Like she understood it. And I was like, wow, this white lady, her prayer is like off the chain. And I was just like, and I changed in that moment when I heard her. And then a couple months later, my mom was with me, and I was about to told my mom, I said, see that woman over there? I said, man, she's a praying somebody. And my mom looked at her for a little bit. Mom said, is she trans? I said, no, how's she gonna be trans, Mom? I was like, we're in a seminary. Because I was new. I was at a liberal seminary, and I didn't even know I was at a liberal seminary because I thought all seminaries were like my tradition. And that's how much I didn't know. And I said, I don't think so. I had only been in school for like 2 months, and I hadn't really talked to many people. And then my mom said it again, and I was like, huh. And then I asked somebody, and then they told me, yeah, this person's trans. And I was like, what? And then I ended up asking her if I could talk to her and ask her a bunch of questions and sound like an ignorant person. And I talked to her and I sounded ignorant and I said what I had to say. And she told me way more than I ever thought I would have to hear. But it changed my life, honestly. And I know a lot of people can't hear that. And I haven't told a lot of people because I didn't want to hear them say negative things about this beautiful person. Um, but I'm telling y'all now. So all that to say, I am working continually on my inner journey. And even though I am uh, concerned about the way that so many of us who have the name Christian show up, um, it's my inner work to do. And then hopefully, as my dream indicated, if I don't fight on the inside, I will see less of that on the outside in the world. So blessings to y'all who are up here. I see Lynn said, thank you, Pedro, for sharing this AM. You have given me important things to remember and think more about. Our self-work is so critical. Blessings to you. And blessings to you too. And blessings to you, Jane. And blessings to anybody who reads this later. I do still believe in possibility. I still do and am completely convinced that the heart of Christ, which I think permeates all of existence, is alive and well and is guiding us into a greater sense of knowing and remembering. But it's going to take a lot of us doing our inner work, and not looking for the world outside to change to give us permission, but for us to claim that heavenly state of consciousness right now and live it into the world regardless of what's appearing before us. And I think a lot of amazing and beautiful things will happen moment by moment, and more of us will live a miraculous life. So thank you for being here with me. Sorry, my eyes are barely open, but like I said, I just had a dream, woke up and did this. And now I got to go brush my teeth and wash my face and get my kids ready for school. Peace.